have a brand new report to look at that makes the case that the Bitcoin multiplier effect is 25x in the short term. So that means for every $1 that wants to flow into Bitcoin, pushes the Bitcoin market cap up by $25. Now let's start analyzing what impact we might see on the Bitcoin price this cycle if all of the billionaires and experts are correct, and we do see hundreds of billions of dollars wanting to flow into Bitcoin. Everybody talks about the demand coming into Bitcoin, but nobody's crunched the numbers and dived into the Bitcoin multiplier effect. So we have this brand new report from Gemini that, as we can see, has this new metric that they call the Bitcoin market cap multiplier. This is the short-term one. Now, what I think is absolutely interesting here is have a look at the volatility. So on the bottom of this chart, they have these little green sections of the chart, and that is the multiplier. Now, I'm going to read you out the summary. So for short-term impacts, this multiplier can range from near 0 to 25x, especially during high volatility periods. However, on average, the short-term multiplier effect is 8x, meaning if $1 of capital wants to briefly move the market and come in, that means the market cap's up by $8. So start thinking about that for a minute. If we just see $100 billion worth of demand for Bitcoin, we're going to see an $800 billion move. Bitcoin's a $2 trillion asset. So we only need a very small amount of capital to push Bitcoin up by $50,000 or $100,000 a coin. This is, again, the most misunderstood aspect of Bitcoin. This is why I love talking about the Bitcoin multiplier effect. And this is why I love this brand new report by Gemini. Really well written. And in the report, they walk us through multiple different scenarios. They also have a long-term market cap. So again, this is a little bit more of a conservative market cap multiplier. And we can see in bull runs, every $1 of inflow results in increasing the market cap by up to 3.7x. And then in bear markets, for every $1 of inflow, it pushes us up by 0.7. So again, everything's pretty much a wash in the bear market. But what I really like about this report is it gives the reasoning why. So the beginning of the report starts to paint an interesting picture. They kind of show us that spot dominance is decreasing in the Bitcoin market. So what that means is, for example, this chart here is showing the rise of CME and other options volumes for Bitcoin. Again, we talk about paper Bitcoin a lot. We're not going to get into it today, but we do know that a lot more Bitcoin derivatives are being traded in the options market and all of that kind of jazz. We know that. Now, we can also see that I really liked is the off-chain versus on-chain volume is changing. So what is this saying? Well, this is again saying the same thing. It's saying a lot less of the activities happening on-chain, more of it's happening off-chain. Again, remember our discussions about BlackRock and Coinbase. I won't get into those today. I want to keep this short and sweet. But what I will say is that this is interesting because Gemini referenced the fact that a lot of this Bitcoin's being scooped up by institutions, by governments, by large entities. They actually started the report at the very top with a tagline that caught my attention. I thought was really interesting. Look at this, centralized entities. Over 30% of Bitcoin's circulating supply is now held by just 216 centralized entities, reflecting both expanding institutional adoption and deepening custodial centralization. Thought that was a really interesting way to start the report. And then they showed this report straight off the bat. Treasury holdings by entity type. And it's showing how these big boys, these big whales, are holding more and more Bitcoin. Have a look at this parabolic rise in the green here just over the past 6 to 12 months. That's a pretty aggressive rise in the Bitcoin held by governments. It's very interesting to see, don't you think? But this picture is essentially telling us that 6 million coins is held by governments, private companies, public companies, ETFs, and exchanges. 6 million. And these are largely not trading very often. Obviously, some Bitcoin on the exchanges, it is being traded. But again, differentiations need to be made. Bitcoin held in Coinbase custody is not the same as Bitcoin held on Coinbase exchange, where retail is just swapping in and out of Bitcoin and XYZ altcoin. Very different. This is a differentiation I'm seeing avoided in the space for some reason. Again, let's be aware of that, because some people will claim we're not seeing a supply shock because you have to include the Coinbase custody Bitcoin that they hold. And I disagree with that, because the Bitcoin that's moving to Coinbase custody, it's coins held by Michael Saylor or the ETFs. And we know that these entities aren't selling their Bitcoin. They're completely different. They're a completely different holder or entity than those who are holding Bitcoin on a centralized exchange, looking to trade into XYZ altcoin. Again, just a caveat I want you guys to be aware of. Now, we have a great comment in the chat. Strategy bought BTC OTC and not on the blockchain. No, so you can buy spot Bitcoin OTC. Buying it OTC, to the best of my knowledge, is just the best way to buy it without moving the price too much. And you can also get some tighter spreads and some better fees and stuff like that, as opposed to just buying it on an exchange. That's how I think of OTC desks. I wanted to open up the discussion of OTC desks in a moment. Maybe first I want to talk about this chart here, showing the supply suffocation, because this is another chart showing just how volatile things have become over the past 6 to 12 months. I think this is really interesting, because a lot of people are still like thinking, okay, this bull run's just like last bull runs, diminishing returns, nothing meaningful is changing in the supply side of Bitcoin. I'm not really that bullish on what is going to happen. Well, what I think is interesting is that what we're seeing is a lot of volatility, and we're seeing over-the-counter desks being absolutely stripped of the Bitcoin. Stripped. It's been strip mined. Have a look at that puppy. Bitcoin is diminishing really aggressively here. This is crazy. This is actually very, very interesting. How quickly the number of Bitcoin on OTC desks has shrunk. It shrunk from around 600,000 coins at the peak in 2019 to today. It looks as if we're at about 156,000. That's a 75% reduction in the amount of Bitcoin held on over-the-counter desks. This is huge, and this is much more impactful than most people, I think, are giving it credit for. This is actually fascinating how quickly this supply shock is manifesting itself in the Bitcoin market. And again, I just don't think this is going to slow down. I think this bull run will be catalyzed or remembered as the first bull run with the big money involved. 2020, that bull run was cut short to let the big money get involved. Again, I'm not going to dive into the speculation of why and who I think cut the Bitcoin bull run short in 2021. You've heard that shtick 1,000 times before. But now I think the big boys have loaded their bags up. Now I think they're ready to let Bitcoin absolutely fly. And when it does fly, this is just speculation. I think it's going to happen quicker than most people think. I mean, we've seen Bitcoin move aggressively previously. We saw Bitcoin do a 20x in 9 months, way back in 2017. Went from $1,000 to $20,000 in 9 months. When it moves, it can move. And I think a lot of people entering the space right now are going to be caught offside when Bitcoin really does move. I'm excited. I'm prepared. Again, I don't want you guys to make any silly decisions when this price really starts moving. I might talk a little bit about price in a moment here before the end of today's video and kind of get a little bit bullish, because I know there's a lot of people, I think, setting themselves up for failure this bull run, looking to sell Bitcoin at 120,000, 150,000, 190,000. Again, we might discuss that at the end of today's video. But again, if you are looking to sell Bitcoin, I would recommend you don't do that. I think the best thing you can do, not financial advice, but I think it's borrow against your Bitcoin. That's personally what I'm doing this bull run. I'm going to be borrowing against my Bitcoin. I've been looking for a place that I can actually trust to borrow against my Bitcoin, because we do know in this space, FTX, Celsius, BlockFi, we've seen examples of companies we shouldn't trust in 2022 and 2023. One that I do trust is the fully backed Bitcoin exchange called FIREFISH, who directly say, we won't hold your Bitcoin. I'm really excited by what these guys are building. Pretty pumped to be partnered with these guys. They're a Bitcoin peer-to-peer lending platform. They don't take custody of your Bitcoin. They use multi-signature vaults meaning that you keep control of your coins while they are kind of in escrow and you're in that loan. And they just recently rolled out 2-year loans. So again, these guys are innovating. Highly recommend you check them out if you do want to borrow against your Bitcoin this bull run. These are the guys I'll be using. And you guys can even get 30% off. So again, that's easy to remember. It's Luke. It rhymes with puke, L-U-K-E. Check out FIREFISH if you want to use them. I think they're a great product that is not only going to be much sought after this bull run, but just in the future of Bitcoin, because nobody wants to sell their Bitcoin. Everybody gets it. What does Michael Saylor say? Never sell your Bitcoin. I think that's what everybody's starting to learn. And not only is everybody starting to learn that, but we're starting to see this manifest itself in the price. And the data that I'm most interested in, and that is the Bitcoin on exchanges. People right now are ripping Bitcoin off the exchange because they're slowly but surely coming to the realization that I don't ever want to sell my Bitcoin. Why would I leave it on an exchange? Oh, great point. Take it off that damn exchange. This is what I absolutely love to see. And this trend is accelerating, shown by the volatility on this chart. It's aggressively. This orange line getting crazy volatile is the 30-day net flow from exchanges. And this is really starting to heat up. So again, I think time to start paying attention to Bitcoin is now. The time to start learning about Bitcoin is now. Again, if you do want to learn a little bit more about the Bitcoin multiplier effect, or just maybe what happens when there is zero Bitcoin on exchanges, I might pop a couple of videos up on screen for you guys to check out. If you're interested in some of those deep dives, I'll put links to both of those videos somewhere around there. And with all that said, I'm going to keep